The 12th of August 1948, 11:45 p.m. Inside the interrogation room at the notorious 28th Precinct in Harlem, Bumpy Johnson sat handcuffed to a heavy steel chair, blood trickling from a fresh cut above his left eyebrow. Detective Sean "Bulldog" O'Malley stood over him, rolling up his sleeves, his knuckles raw and red from the impact. O'Malley leaned in close, the smell of cheap whiskey and stale tobacco on his breath, and whispered, "I run this block, Johnson. I touch your wife, I touch your money, and tonight, I end you." Bumpy was cornered. He was facing 30 years for racketeering, surrounded by 6 armed officers loyal only to O'Malley. The evidence was on the table. The witness statements were signed. Everyone expected Bumpy to rage or beg. They expected a violent outburst that would justify O'Malley putting a bullet in his brain right there in the station. But what Detective O'Malley didn't know was that Bumpy Johnson had been counting the seconds for the last 3 days. He didn't know that the evidence on the table was actually a bomb waiting to go off. 72 hours later, the precinct wasn't filled with Bumpy's screams. It was filled with O'Malley's pleas for mercy as the district attorney walked in with federal handcuffs. This is the story of how a single slap cost a dirty cop his entire life. Can patience really be deadlier than a loaded gun? Harlem in the late 1940s wasn't just run by gangsters. It was leased by the New York Police Department. The 28th Precinct operated less like a law enforcement agency and more like a rival cartel, collecting protection money from every speakeasy, jazz club, and numbers racket on 125th Street. At the center of this corruption sat Detective O'Malley. He wasn't just a lawman, he was a gatekeeper who demanded a strict 30% cut of all illicit trade in his sector. O'Malley had 15 years on the force and a body count higher than most contract killers. He had survived 3 internal affairs investigations and 2 assassination attempts, leaving him with a feeling of absolute invincibility. His reputation was ironclad. If you crossed O'Malley, evidence would mysteriously appear in your apartment, or you would simply vanish during a prison transfer to upstate New York. He felt untouchable because the system was designed to protect him. Bumpy Johnson was the undisputed king of Harlem, but within the concrete walls of O'Malley's precinct house, Bumpy was just another inmate waiting for a beating. This power imbalance was the foundation of O'Malley's arrogance. He believed a badge was a magic shield that could deflect any bullet. He didn't realize that Bumpy wasn't aiming at the badge, he was aiming at the man underneath it. This wasn't just a criminal matter, it was a clash of 2 sovereigns. The clock turns back to July 29, exactly 2 weeks before the interrogation room confrontation. It was a humid Tuesday night at Cecil's Jazz Club on 118th Street. Bumpy was enjoying a rare, quiet dinner with his wife, Mayme. The peace was shattered when O'Malley stormed in with 2 uniformed officers, demanding an immediate cash donation of $2,000. When Mayme calmly told the detective that he had already been paid his envelope for the month, O'Malley snapped. In front of 20 witnesses, including the band and the bartenders, he struck Mayme across the face with the back of his hand. The room went dead silent. The music stopped instantly. Every man in Bumpy's crew reached for their waistbands, fingers twitching on their triggers, ready to turn the jazz club into a slaughterhouse. Bumpy stood up slowly. He looked at the red mark on Mayme's cheek, then locked eyes with O'Malley. "You're a brave man, Detective," Bumpy said softly. O'Malley laughed, spitting on the floor near Bumpy's polished shoes. "I'm not brave, boy. I'm the law. Do something about it." Bumpy did nothing. He signaled his men to stand down. O'Malley left triumphantly, convinced he had finally broken Bumpy's spirit. But the attacks didn't stop there. On August 2, O'Malley raided 3 of Bumpy's lottery spots, seizing $6,000 in cash. On August 5, he arrested Bumpy's top lieutenant, Big Dino, on trumped-up assault charges. On August 10, O'Malley parked his patrol car outside Bumpy's apartment building for 6 hours, just to intimidate the tenants and Bumpy's family. Bumpy took every hit without retaliation. He seemed paralyzed by the assault. His crew began to whisper that the boss was losing his edge, that he was getting soft. They wanted blood. Bumpy, however, was doing something they couldn't see. He wasn't retreating. He was compiling. Every time O'Malley made a move, Bumpy wrote it down in a small black ledger. He noted the exact time, the badge numbers of the officers present, the specific amounts stolen, and the names of civilian witnesses. He wasn't preparing for a street war. He was preparing a legal guillotine. Bumpy knew he couldn't win a shootout with the NYPD, so he decided to fight a different kind of war. On the morning of August 12, Bumpy made his move. He knew O'Malley's schedule perfectly. He deliberately walked down Lenox Avenue, carrying a battered brown leather satchel. He made sure O'Malley's patrol car saw him. It was the bait. O'Malley screeched to a halt, jumping out with his service revolver drawn, eager to humiliate Bumpy again. "What's in the bag, Johnson?" he shouted. Bumpy didn't run. He didn't reach for a weapon. He just smiled. "Just laundry, officer." O'Malley tore the bag open. Inside was $10,000 in small bills. It was an illegal amount of cash to carry, enough for an immediate felony arrest. O'Malley handcuffed Bumpy right there on the sidewalk, grinning like a shark that had just found a wounded seal. "Got you on racketeering, tax evasion, and bribery." O'Malley gloated as he shoved Bumpy into the back of the squad car. The journey to the 28th Precinct was a victory lap for the detective. He paraded Bumpy through the front desk, yelling to the other cops that he had finally caught the big fish. They threw Bumpy into the interrogation room and handcuffed him to the chair. This brings us back to the opening moment. O'Malley thought he had won the war. He believed the money in the bag was his retirement fund. He began counting it out on the metal table, taunting Bumpy with every stack he laid down. "I'm going to spend this on a new car." O'Malley laughed. "And you're going to spend the next 20 years in Sing Sing rotting away." Bumpy watched the detective touch every single bill. He watched O'Malley's fingerprints coat the cash. While O'Malley was busy celebrating, Bumpy was checking his internal clock. He knew that his associate, the slick lawyer known as the Professor, had just walked into the federal building downtown. He knew that a phone call was being made to the FBI field office. The trap wasn't the arrest. The trap was the money itself. Bumpy sat in silence, enduring the insults, knowing that every second O'Malley spent gloating was another nail in his coffin. Here is the masterstroke that O'Malley never saw coming. That $10,000 in the leather satchel wasn't gambling profit. It was bank-traceable currency. 3 days prior, Bumpy had withdrawn the money from a legitimate account under a shell company's name. He had his men record the serial number of every single bill in that bag. But he went a step further. Bumpy had dusted the bills with a specific chemical powder, visible only under ultraviolet light, a trick he learned from a corrupt chemist back in the 30s. When the professor walked into the FBI office, he didn't just ask for help. He presented a sworn affidavit. He laid out the black ledger Bumpy had been keeping for weeks. It detailed every bribe O'Malley had demanded, every raid, and specifically, the assault on Mayme, corroborated by 3 waiters from the club. The FBI had been looking for a way to nail the corrupt leadership of the 28th Precinct for years, but they lacked hard evidence. Bumpy handed it to them on a silver platter. At exactly midnight, the door to the interrogation room didn't open for another beating. It swung open to reveal 4 men in dark suits. They weren't NYPD, they were federal agents. O'Malley froze, a stack of bills still in his hand. "Detective Sean O'Malley," the lead agent announced. "You are under arrest for extortion, federal racketeering, and civil rights violations." O'Malley laughed nervously, his eyes darting around the room. "You boys are confused. This is a local bust. This is my money." The agent didn't argue. He simply turned off the overhead lights and clicked on a portable UV lamp. The room plunged into darkness, but O'Malley's hands glowed a bright, radioactive orange. The money on the table glowed orange. Even the shirt O'Malley was wearing, where he had wiped his hands, glowed with the incriminating dust. The blood drained from the detective's face. His hands began to shake uncontrollably. He looked at Bumpy, who was sitting calmly in the shadows. Bumpy finally broke his silence. "I told you, detective. You touched my wife. Now the government is going to touch you." The realization hit O'Malley like a physical blow. He hadn't just stolen money. He had been caught holding federal evidence that he had personally contaminated. The professor had timed the delivery of the serial number list to coincide exactly with the raid. There was no way out. O'Malley started screaming, begging his captain to intervene, but the captain had already slipped out the back door to save himself. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for the 28th Precinct. Detective O'Malley was stripped of his badge and gun right there in the interrogation room, humiliated in front of the men he used to command. Within 48 hours, the Internal Affairs Division, under immense pressure from the feds, suspended 6 other officers implicated in Bumpy's ledger. The $10,000 was eventually returned to Bumpy as personal property after being processed as evidence, meaning Bumpy financed O'Malley's destruction with his own money and got it back. O'Malley was indicted on 14 counts of corruption. Because the case involved federal racketeering, the judge showed no mercy. The untouchable detective was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. He was sent to Atlanta Penitentiary, a facility filled with men he had helped put away. The irony was absolute. Bumpy Johnson walked out of the precinct that same night, a free man. As he stepped onto the sidewalk of 123rd Street, the neighborhood watchers were stunned. They had expected a funeral. Instead, they got a coronation. The message sent to the NYPD was crystal clear. You can arrest Bumpy Johnson, you can harass him, but if you cross the line of disrespect, he will not just fight you, he will dismantle your entire career. No cop in Harlem dared to lay a hand on Mayme Johnson ever again. The fear shifted from the criminal to the enforcer. Bumpy didn't just win a fight, he redrew the boundaries of power in Harlem for the next decade. O'Malley died in prison 7 years later, a broken man who never understood that his ego was the weapon Bumpy used to kill him. This story teaches us a profound lesson about the nature of true power. Most men, when faced with disrespect, react with immediate emotion. If Bumpy had punched O'Malley in the jazz club, Bumpy would have been shot dead or given the electric chair for assaulting an officer. Bumpy understood that immediate revenge is often suicide. Real power is the ability to absorb a blow, control the emotional response, and wait for the perfect moment to strike back. He traded his pride in the moment for total victory in the future. Bumpy showed that intelligence is far more dangerous than violence. Violence is messy. It leaves bodies and brings heat. Strategy is clean. It uses the enemy's own momentum against them. O'Malley fell because he underestimated the intellect of a criminal. He thought power came from the badge, but Bumpy proved that power comes from information and leverage. In life, business, or conflict, the person who keeps their cool while everyone else is losing theirs is the one who controls the outcome. Bumpy Johnson didn't just survive the trap, he became the trap. The 12th of August, 1948. A slap led to a 25-year sentence. If this story of cold calculation showed you the value of patience, smash that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe intellect beats brute force every time. Comment. Would you have waited? Remember, revenge is a dish best served cold.